We tried everything to get Maddox to come out. Here's Daddy massaging my feet the night we went into labor. Little did we know. All right, we are on our way to the hospital. It's dark out because it's 1 o'clock in the morning, 1:30 in the morning, and my water just broke. And Dad is trying not to have a heart attack.
I was half asleep, man.
So, it's time. July 4th, 2017, 1:30. Hey, you're gonna be a dad at some point today. How do you feel?
Let's just get this over with.
It wasn't at all on my birth plan to have any medication, but I got a saline lock just in case. We were checked into our room and our nurse's name was Marilyn. I felt this was a great sign since Maddox was being named for my grandma Marilyn. My labor wasn't progressing on its own, so she convinced us to walk the halls. We were extremely comfortable, smiling, and happy, and that was until I was convinced to start Pitocin. And that's when labor really got started. Six hours later, on the Pitocin, and I didn't even progress 2 centimeters. I was in a ton of pain though, and completely miserable. I finally had to ask for the epidural. But unfortunately, with any medication, I had a terrible reaction and felt even worse. But as usual, David was able to make me smile and remind me that we would be meeting our little boy soon. Even through all the pain, I just breathed through it. I was checked at 7 p.m. and I was dilated to a 6. By midnight, I was only to a 7. And I know babies aren't born in numbers, but my epidural had already worn off, and I was getting absolutely exhausted. I started to beg for a C-section because I knew that Maddox only had about an hour to come out before I was in danger of an infection. At 3 a.m., the epidural had completely worn off, and I woke up with intense back labor that caused me to dry heave. I was fully dilated to a 10, but I was unable to push, move, or breathe. The anesthesiologist gave me more medicine, and since the baby was still pretty high up, I had to labor down for the next 3 hours. At 6 a.m., my temperature had gone all the way up to 101.5, which was my biggest fear. As I started to push, Maddox's heart rate went up way too high or down too low. The doctors were really concerned about getting him out safely. We were really scared. We didn't know what was going to happen next. I wasn't able to push through some contractions, and David never left my side. I had been pushing for over an hour, and the doctor was concerned that he wasn't moving down fast enough. She said we were going to have to skip the second stage of labor, and she would have to assist him out. I was initially against all types of intervention, but at this point, David and I were just worried about getting our little boy out safely, so we agreed. But in the time that it took to set me up for the procedure, Maddox had already moved back up, and now they were calling for an emergency C-section. Since I was extremely anemic, my doctor was a bit concerned about going in via C-section. She said she could give me 2 more contractions to get him back down to where he was. This took me an hour and a half earlier, so I wasn't quite sure I could do it. She called in the NICU team on standby, as well as another doctor to consult, who agreed we had 2 more contractions, or she would have to cut me open and take him out. Just a quick warning, this is my birth story, so you are about to see my son born, and he didn't cry or move when he came out. And with my husband by my side, I pushed with everything in me to get our baby boy out safely.
Okay, go!
As you can see, when Maddox came out, he was completely limp and did not cry.
Congratulations!
The minute that it took for us to hear any sound from him was the longest minute of our lives.
Baby's a little quiet right now.
Since the NICU team had to intervene, all of our birth plans went out the window. We were unable to delay cord clamping or bathing. There was no skin to skin, no golden hour. We couldn't even rub the vernix in. But none of that mattered. All that mattered was that our baby boy was safe.
Good job. Yeah, he just was tired just like Mommy was.
And just like that, at 7 pounds, 13 ounces, 21 inches, our baby boy was here. Love at first sight for both Daddy and I is an understatement, but they wanted to take Maddox immediately to the NICU. We definitely weren't out of the woods yet. They told us he could be there anytime between 2 days and 2 weeks, and they weren't even going to let me hold him until his daddy stepped in. They did let me hold him, but only for about a minute, and then they took him in for immediate monitoring and IV. David was able to go with Maddox while he got hooked up to the machines in the NICU. Shortly after, he was able to start bonding with his son, taking pictures and enjoying him. But I had to wait until I could get feeling back in my legs. This was the most frustrating part. I was finally able to go down there and get my skin-to-skin contact with my baby boy that I carried around for 10 months. Daddy soon joined in, because it's really important for both parents to have that contact. It was really difficult seeing our baby boy hooked up to machines, poked and prodded every other day, and it was definitely a long 2 days. We were spending every 3 hours in the NICU, trying to nurse and enjoying our baby boy that we'd waited so long to meet. After the longest 48 hours of our lives, we finally got the news. Maddox and I were being discharged together. We took our first family photo outside of the hospital and headed home for the first time ever as a family. Maddox spent the entire car ride death grip on my finger, but it was all so wonderful. He got home and everything was perfect. What was life without him before? We even had our most recent pediatrician visit, and she said he was perfect. After 10 months of waiting, 31 hours of labor, and 2 of the longest days anyone could ever imagine, we got our happy ending. We were finally a family. The Murphy family.